Hi there, this is Concy from Top Serenity Hill, and if you're on my page, then you know that because my name's at the top. And I wanted to play today in my studio, and I wanted to work on a deck. I have a new class coming out called In This Moment. It's a live class about making a handmade deck. And the idea behind it is that, what kind of deck do you need right now? What kind of deck would help you, you know, in your day-to-day life, in your crafting life, in your creative life, whatever it is. And I've made a lot of decks over the years, and I just thought it would be fun to show you a process of something that just happened to me yesterday. I was having a very hard time like figuring out what I wanted to do in my studio, and I have this set of dice that a friend of mine, Kristen from OTM Academy here on Instagram, showed us how to make. And on each one is a little phrase or whatever where if I don't know what to do, I will toss the dice and pick something. And so I did that yesterday, and actually what came up was I threw both, and it came up with make stickers or work in a magazine journal. And on my table were some sticker paper, like from Staples, some blank sticker paper that I cut off something. So I just spent an hour, a delightful hour, playing, making these, stickers with stamps and colored pencils and some markers. But what it got me thinking was it might be nice to actually have a deck that I can pull from. So I don't want a ton of dice because these are rather large. But I would want a deck with all these words on it, but then to expand on it. So one of the things I have going on my table is this deck I started a while ago, probably almost a year, and it's just cardstock and paper, like collage papers or under papers, whatever was lying around, or that's in my, box of bits here. And I made these little square cards, and in the idea that at some point I would turn them into a deck. I just didn't know what I wanted. And so that's what's tying into the fact that as I was doing this yesterday, I realized that in this moment, the name of my new deck class, I needed a deck all about breaking my creative block when I walk in the studio. I wanted to have something to pull from. And this is, I actually have a prompt deck when I'm working on a page, and it's like, use a scissor or, actually I'll show it to you since, I can do that. It's got colors like, violet or blue, or the word desert. It says stitch or modeling piece. So it's like when you get stuck within actually working. But what I was looking for was a deck for when I'm stuck actually working. Like I just walk in the studio and draw a blank. So I did a couple things. Because I loved what I had written on these little cubes, I went ahead and took a piece of paper, and I have an old vintage typewriter, and you can see that I'm, vintage typewriters are fun. If you can do a keyboard and then you're one fingering a vintage typewriter, you make a lot of mistakes. But I went ahead and just made up some things, ideas for if I walk in the studio and I'm like, I just want to be creative, but I don't necessarily want to be, do art journaling. And I probably will add art journaling too here because I do that a lot. But, something like purge something is not necessarily creative, but if you have a studio like mine or a table like mine, it's always covered in stuff. So could you just spend, 5-10 minutes purging stuff, junk that's just sitting there, papers that are not collageable, they literally should go in the garbage. So it makes you do something. I even put a couple on here. One is forage, and one, although you could forage in your studio, but forage and then nature mandala, I spelled mandala wrong. So that it forces me to actually go outside and be creative if the weather's nice. So the idea that I thought I'd share while I was on here live today and just playing was to just finish these. So what I usually do is I will grab one that I've put down. These I can tell one that I've been playing with this one already. And I just kind of add more to it. So it might be that, you know, the color, I want to intensify the color. I might add more stenciling. I might add doodles. So the first thing that's caught my eye here is this little circle. And I pulled out some rubber stamps as well. I always have a lot of, I have a lot of go-to things, rubber stamps. Ooh, I like that. I'm going to keep that. And then I'll explain where my brain just went. But I have a lot of supplies around me. Colored pencils right here and rubber stamps. I grabbed a stack of stencils. I always have my pens handy. I grabbed some washi tape here. So we can just play. So this circle caught my eye. And then I pulled out, this was the first circle I thought of, but I also love that this mimics the circle, and then this is like an itty bitty, not quite circles, but close enough to me. So I'm gonna play with that. It looks like I will need some kind of underpaper, because if not, I'll stamp all over my table here. So I'll move in and out of the underpaper so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just using Ranger's Archival ink. This is a very old stamp pad, so it's actually doesn't always get dark, but that's okay with me. I don't mind that. Cool. And then I'm just gonna see if I can mimic, instead of blue, they would be black. And I would get some of those. And of course, always using my underpaper, whatever, because eventually I'll rip this up and some of this can become another card, which is handy. I'm just gonna add some dots to the actual blue. And then I love this pink, and I like that there's barely any pink here, so I think I'm gonna grab my watercolor. And I'm going to make this really stand out so that the circle stands out. And I'll let that dry, and then we'll just keep, and I play with a bunch of these at the same time because, you know, I just want to see where it all goes and what I want to do. And I like the flowers, so let's see if we're gonna add, I'm gonna kind of stay with watercolor, so I'm gonna stencil with the watercolor. I know that's messy, but I don't care. I tend to just try everything because why not? So the colors that I have here are this peachy color, and then I have a tiny bit of this green, and I'm gonna try that first, because I like that. So my trick, if you would like to call it a trick, to watercoloring and stenciling is that I don't use a lot of water, obviously, and it's more pigment than water. So lift it up and see. Actually, I'm going to do all of it. Okay, so I'll add to that. Hi there. Thanks for whoever's joining me. All right, again, I'm added a piece. It needs to dry a minute, so we're gonna let that go. Close my ink pad before I get my hands filthy. And so let's try one. Again, this is one I feel like I've played with before. But I'm going to pick up some colored pencils. And I was just trying to find, like, is there a section on it that I like? So this is from a stamp. I know I have a big giant flower stamp. And so that's most likely what that is. And maybe we will just concentrate on this section. So pull some of that light green up. And you can leave, you know, you could leave more white space if you wanted. Leave some of the white space behind. I don't always do that. I'm a cover it all kind of person. If you see my journals or go through my feed, you'll see it's not like I'm a light a light art journaler. I cover that sucker up. Okay, and then I think I'm gonna do this burgundy. Got a couple color pencils here. Kind of emphasize that petal shape. And I'm just going with whatever feels good. Some yellow. Maybe I'll come back in with some, there's some black lines on here, which I could come in with a paint marker or a Sharpie marker, which, why not? And just play off of whatever is there. Make it look like it's cracking. These, again, are going to have words on them, and they're not meant to be like this finished, gorgeous piece. It's a piece of art, but it's not meant to be this gorgeous, finished piece of art. Some people might hang this, you know. There are people I know who might put this on their wall, frame these itty-bitty pieces. But that's not the point. The point is I want something pretty or interesting, different, unique to look at when I pull this as a card. Now, to me, that one's done. Nothing is screaming at me. Nothing is feeling unfinished. It feels done to me. So I'm going to let that the dry, because I don't want to turn on the heat gun on a live. That would be kind of loud and obnoxious. Excuse me. I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to add a word to that, and I'll show you how I would finish it completely. Okay, so let me go back to this one. With this one, I love this piece of black here, and I feel like I want to add more black across it. So I'm going to go in and add some doodle marks. Actually use the Sharpie. I'm a big fan of Sharpie pens because of the fact that they don't bleed through paper, but this has no hope of bleeding through. It is, some of them are cardstock. I think some of them might be mixed media. Again, I made the base of these, this whole stack, probably a year ago. And they've just been sitting here waiting for me to get my idea of what I wanted to do. And so that's what, yesterday when I was struggling in my studio, the idea came and said, make a prompt deck for when you're struggling in your studio. Not when you're struggling on your art piece, when you're actually struggling in the studio. So I thought it'd be fun to come on here and talk about that, since I have a class coming up on September 17th. It's a live class. It will be recorded if you're not able to make it, called In This Moment. And it's a handmade deck making class where I help you create the deck that you need right now, where it be an oracle deck, an inspiration deck, mantra deck, a word of the year deck. I've made them all. This one is a prompt deck. So it just, you know, what is it that you are looking for right now that would help you? What kind of deck would it be? It could be that it's, you know, bits of poetry and that you wanted a deck that would inspire you to write more, or sorry, just can't seem to look for a colored pencil and keep talking. That would help you write more. Or is it a deck that, you know, you need a mantra every morning or something inspirational? Do you know someone that maybe could use a deck that, you know, is going through a hard time, and maybe you could make them something that they could pull from every day? It could just be words. It doesn't have to be phrases. I have decks that have a single word. I made out a whole deck that's just emotions. So it's whatever works for you. And that's the whole point of the class, is to help you figure out something that you can play with. It could just be that you want to make a deck. It doesn't have to have any like deep purpose other than, ooh, deck making sounds fun. I would love to make a deck. I would love to have someone help me through that process of getting my idea out of my head. So this class isn't about mass producing a deck or selling a deck. This is strictly about doing a personal deck, something just for yourself. And so yeah, if you're interested, I'll have the link. The link is in my bio already, but I'll also have it in the caption of this for later. As long as it, you know, records correctly. The internet gods sometimes do their own thing. So that one is fun. I think it needs more black around the edges, and I think what I'm going to do for that is just edge it with my stamp pad and grunge it up a little bit on the corners so I can pull that black across the piece. And I think that one is, for me, that one's good. So one of the questions I get a lot is, how do you know when something's done? And the answer I always give, and I know it's not the one everyone wants to hear because they want to know there's a definitive answer, is that it stops talking to me. The piece stops talking. Like it literally says nothing. And by that I mean I look at it and my eye travels naturally around it. I'm enjoying where everything is. It feels balanced. No part of it is like, oh, you know what? Ooh, you know what? That to me is, it's still talking when it goes, ooh, you know what? And I pick up another supply. So try and pay attention as you're painting and see if you can start to hear that voice that says, that just goes quiet. Or if your piece, and this isn't the, I wonder what other people will think of it, or this is being really quiet and listening. It'll talk to you if you let it. It'll also be quiet if you let it. For sure. All right, so again, I'm back with the color pencil. I'm seeing bits of yellow, so I want to extend the yellow out into the piece. And then I might even grab some blue. Got a little blue here. And that will help balance this. You can even make this more circular. Oh, loving it. Now that I've done the black around the edge of this has started talking to me again. See? It said, me too, put black around me. And actually that works really good because I've got the black lines. So it can, I always love that. That's one of my favorite things to do, is to finish off a piece. It's probably why this looks so ratty, because I've run it across so many things. Excuse me while I grab some water. So, not loving this, but I'm not sure what I want to do to it. So I'm just going to play with some colored pencils and see. Maybe what it needs is to strengthen this up and to strengthen this up. So as I'm playing, I'm starting to almost develop a pattern of how I'm doing this. So I started using a Sharpie on here, I ended up using a Sharpie on here, and now I'm putting a Sharpie on here. So that's also a way, besides the fact the words will all look the same on my piece, that's another way I'm starting to tie my deck together as I work. So they're all going to have a bit of this Sharpie, and they most likely all will have white dots. Because of how, one started doing that, then I added it to a second, and now it feels natural to go and do it to a third. So the tying factor between the three is using some black Sharpie marks and using the white dots. Okay, so then that way they're tied. The third way they're all being tied together is edging them with the black ink pad. And then, so 1 black Sharpie, 2 black Sharpie, white Posca paint pen, 3 edge them, and 4, all the words on them will look the same. So that will add the third tie-in. So let me pull this out and you can see them. And I'm gonna add words to them. I'll pick some. And with this one, where is it? Oh yeah, my inspiration, which is my dice that I throw. I cut them so they're not ripped, but I feel like these are messier. Let's go with that. And so I'm going to rip the paper. I love the way the ripped paper looks. And you don't have to, you know, it is an advantage for me to have a vintage typewriter. You do not need a vintage typewriter. If you have access to a computer and a printer, you can do the same thing. Just use typewriter font. And I did at some point work on this, and this is, depending on which font you're using, it's between 10 and 11 point on the fonts. So you can do the same idea. So I think make fodder might need to be in the flower. All right, so I have, you know, I feel like I'm on a make. So make stickers, make fodder, and then I'm going to use make a stamp. And so this might be a deck that I work on for a little while. This, again, with the deck making class, you most likely will not finish the deck in that 3-hour period of which we'll meet. You'll have access to the class afterwards. It is going to be recorded, so then you can go back and you know, take any information you need and keep making. But a lot of times, deck making is not something, unless you're a manifesting generator, which I know quite a few of, they can do a deck in a day, depending on the deck. But it is something that you should take your time doing and enjoy the process. Let me glue these down, and then I'm gonna, so I can show you 3 finished. And once I glue them down, I can also make the decision if I need to make marks around them, and I'm feeling no at this point. Sometimes I do some sketchy marks around them. And so this, this is just regular old printer paper that I stuck through my typewriter. Okay, so I've got a set of 3 that I've got it started. And I will work on a bunch at the same time, like I was saying. I'll show you, especially if you're joined later. Those are my 3 finished ones. But I have a stack of them that I have started. And a lot, by started, I mean I glued a piece of paper or a piece of collage paper or under paper down to cardstock. That's basically all it is. And this is just a pile of little square cards. I can tell you what size they are too, because I know sometimes it's hard on camera to see. Whoops, inches for those of us in the US. So these are 2-inch squares. And it's a small deck. It's not, you know, a lot of times a deck, if you're do oracle cards or tarot cards, they're definitely bigger. But sometimes it's nice to just have an itty bitty deck. And I have to say, my God, I'm loving this. Woohoo, so pretty. So I think I'm feeling bold. So I'm gonna do a couple more, and then we'll see where we go from there. So we have that. Might be fun to see where this crazy brown and green one goes. And then there's some cards in here that, you know, this doesn't necessarily translate to this so well. So let's see. The other thing I could do if I want it to feel like it's, see if I can get them into the, There you go. Screen. So they can watch them. If I like this, I mean, I have this already cut out, but I'm not loving, I like maybe the orange is a good start, but the rest of it and the words too much. Then I could go through and pull out maybe some papers, and instead of just embellishing it, even that might be fun, embellishing it with color, you know, the watercolor and my stencils and all that, I might put a piece of collage paper on it because it is, hang on, I have to disconnect my phone. There you go. I'm running into the cord. It's kind of, you know, I don't like that. It's not feeling like it would fit with these. So a bit of collage paper might be a good thing. So I'm going through what I call my, I'll show it again, my box o' bits. I have a small box of bits. Try not to make your box too big because then it gets overwhelming. Ooh, that's a fun green color with that. And so I'll glue some papers down and see if I can, let's see. This is magazine paper, so it's a little bit on the slick side, so maybe because of what I'm doing, that might not work. But some of this might. So don't be afraid to keep, you know, building a little bit on it. If you're love to do building a collage and you like, you know, stapling things on and all that, then by all means, you do you. These can be as dimensional as you want them to be. They can also, you know, I went very random, and so each one is very different. But if you had a big piece of underpaper, and I'll show you what I mean, because I know to some people they're not sure what that means. This is a leftover piece. Like this is a piece of underpaper. This is paper that was underneath me spraying and rolling off and jelly plating and all sorts of things. So you could take a big piece like this, just flip it over and glue a bunch of the cards to the back of it and then cut them out. And just use this as your inspiration. It doesn't have to be as random as mine is. It could be one big piece that you use. And so they all have a similar feel to them. And that way, you know, you have a good start on the cards. So many ways to go with this, friends. So many ways. Sometimes it just helps to have a narrowing down of the ideas. And to, you know, play and experiment and see. All right. So I'm feeling like I've got the words not so prevalent on that one. So we'll let that one go for a minute. This one needs to be broken up some, so I think I'm gonna stamp. First stamp that popped out, no reason I'm using the arrow other than it's the one that fell into my hand. Okay? Let's be honest, sometimes that's all it takes. All right, so that at least takes the green down a little bit on that one. All right, so that's drying, got some stamps in this. Maybe I'll do a stencil on this one. Let's see what we got. I got tons of stencils floating around here. I love stencils that have multiple cutouts on them as opposed to, you know, this one is just feathers or it's just a repeating pattern over and over again. I don't think I have one of them with me because I usually keep all these handy. Kind of take it off the edge a little bit. But I love the repeating patterns because if I'm going to own a stencil, I want it to have multiple uses. So if you don't own a lot of stencils and want to buy some, then, you know, unless it's a pattern that, you know, you totally love and you think you'd get a lot of use of, go for it. If not, maybe try to buy some that have repeating patterns on them. I own a ton of stencils because I used to write for the crafters workshop, and that's what most of my, actually that's pretty much 99% of my stencils are from the crafters workshop, because we used them in the blog post we wrote. I was on their design team for 2 years, so you can imagine how many stencils I currently own. And I have given a ton away because not all of them are my style. So, all right, this brown needs something, and let's see. I'm going to use a little gesso, maybe. Oops, I picked up the wrong gesso. I don't want clear, I want white. No wonder it's not coming out. So I just have a little bottle of Liquitex gesso. I do not have a preference. I would say if I was hard pressed to pick a preference of most of my mediums, it's with the Crafters Workshop. I cannot get this open. Yay! Because I used them for so many years, I really enjoy how they work. But you pick what is affordable and what works in your budget. All right, so I have some white gesso, and I'm going to grab another stencil. This one has some awesome pieces in it. And because we were doing a lot of white dots here, maybe we'll do some white dots here, just to break up that brown. I'm not loving it. Okay. And so some of these are going to take longer than others to play with and to mess around with. And that's good. This is also a great way to practice. Maybe a technique you wanted to try, or a new supply that you have. The name of the stencil I just used, they don't have names on them, but I might be able to find the numbers, maybe. Nope, it's all over. Nope. It is the Crafters Workshop. That's definitely the brand. Oh, here it is. The number says, maybe, I could tell you, 539. So TCW 539. That's the best I can tell you. Hi, Julie. I hope that helps for the person that asked. But when in doubt, just go to the Crafters Workshop and look. This is also a very old stencil, so it's possible it's not available anymore because they are constantly coming out with new stencils. But I do highly recommend that brand. I think they have very beautiful stencils. All right. So again, I'm sensing, can you see? I'm sensing the theme here. So I'm staying with the same kind of colored pencils. Ooh, that's pretty. I'm also finding that the paper is coming up, so let me glue that down before I rip it. And if for those that are just joining, I am working on a baby deck for when I get blocks in my studio. It happened yesterday. And I grabbed something I have dice that I throw that a friend of mine taught me how to make, and it just gives me a way to do something. This is not within art journaling, which is my predominant. This is to literally start, work in a magazine journal, go through old journals, go outside and make a nature mandala. But it got me thinking about the class I have coming up called In This Moment, and it's a handmade deck making class, because I thought about it and I was like, honestly, I need this deck right now. So, what is it that I'm craving? And so I have a bunch of these sitting on my table, and they're little pieces of decks. It's a deck that just has papers collaged on it. And so what I'm doing is starting to work on finishing them so that instead of having the dice, which I love and use, but this deck can get bigger. I don't want to have like 12 sets of dice. But this deck, I can make a deck as big as I want. And it would be something when I get blocked, when I come into the studio, I can pull a card and make a sticker, which I did yesterday. I showed them earlier in case you're new here. I had just some sticker paper from Staples left over, and I just played with stamping and colored pencils and markers and made 4 strips that I don't know what I'll do with, but that would be considered making fodder as well as making stickers. And then, you know, make a stamp, that sort of thing. I have things like cut up a magazine, jelly plate, play with clay, make a greeting card, make a nature mandala or forage forcing me to go outside. So anything like that works. All right, so I'm thinking this needs some black. And let's go back to Old Reliable. Remember what I was saying at the beginning? I started using the Sharpie on each of these. So I'm also going to use the Sharpie. So once I started doing a few cards, I realized I kept recreating the same doodling techniques with the Sharpie and with my white Posca paint pen. So I'm going with it. And so each of the cards will have something to do with that. They'll also have some white dots done with the paint pen, and I will edge each one with my stamp pad. All right. So I like that. I feel like I need a darker color. So the other thing I might drag out, but I don't know if I have them real handy, is my Inktense pencils. Those are another way I like to add some really intense pencil color. I guess that's why they're called that, huh? All right, so again, still talking, but I'm not sure what I want to do with it. And the thing with my colored pencils is, honestly, I don't know. Just because it looks like this doesn't mean it's the color I think it's going to be. Rarely is it. And I know if I swatched them, that would solve the problem, but I am not a swatcher. The closest I ever came to swatching was my watercolor. And other than that, I like a surprise. Because I'll just play with it. If it doesn't work, I'll add something. So if I had put this blue down and I had hated it, which I don't hate it, but if I had, I wouldn't try to take it off. I would just leave it be, and then I would just add bits of blue somewhere else, so that as I cover it, it's not like I have this blue randomly sitting up in the corner. I like to take a color and add it across. Close my Sharpie. Add it across the page so that my eye travels. And now I seem to be in the blue family, so what I'm trying to do is find, there we go, a color pencil that's similar to the green underneath. Because I like to just, intensify whatever had been there. I have a feeling that was acrylic paint because it feels like it had something to do with the Christmas class I taught a couple years ago. At least I think so. All right, still too dark for me, so hi, Steph. I'm going to go back to my stencil, and I'm going back to my white gesso. And so the first 3 took like no time at all to do, and these are not. But that's okay. That feels better to me because of the fact that some of this green and brown is now disappearing. So I'm gonna let that dry. I like that. Actually like that. All right, and then since I'm liking the gesso, I'm gonna try it on something else. Maybe this. There's a lot of gesso in my sponge, but hey, we'll see what happens. gluing down the corner. So these were done such a long time ago, I might even have been using a different glue stick that wasn't, I had a couple glue sticks that were just horrible, but I didn't realize it until it was, you know, too late. Until things started coming apart later. All right, so let's let those two dry, and then we're coming back here. And I've got pink up here, but I don't have enough pink down in here for me. So my eye keeps stopping here. So if I pull some, maybe in there. And one of the things I want to encourage you to do as you're watching me is, weirdly enough, judge me. And what I mean by that is, you know, look at what I'm doing and see, would I have made that decision? Maybe not. Why would I have not made that decision? And it's not in a bad way. It's a decision of, well, how do I work? Would I have done this differently? I would have done that. I would have stopped there. I would have gone back and added. I would have not done it that way. And that's a good thing to know for yourself as you watch someone work, is to analyze, what is it that you're loving about it? What is it that you don't like about it? You know, maybe not tell the person in a mean way. That wouldn't be nice. But for yourself, that's how you learn to deal with your style and how to play with your style and learn what you do like and what you don't like. Okay, this is one of the, like a junk stamp that was left over that I just took chunks out of. And now I have this fun pattern. Looks like cracks. Love it. All right. So this one is very dark, but if I get some white in it, I think I'll be happy. So I'm going to add some dots. It's just a white Posca paint pen. And it will help brighten up all that green. Ooh, loving that. And it's possible that when I decide on a word for this, I might want to spin it. Like maybe I'll like it a different way when I choose what to put on it. Okay, so I'm going to let the dots dry because I'm infamous for picking it up when it's still wet and then smearing all the dots. And I do love the idea of this arrow, so I'm going to see if I can put the arrow back on there. And it doesn't have to be exactly the same. I just want to pull the arrow back to the top. Yeah. Okay. And just using a color pencil just to emphasize the arrow a little bit more. Okay, actually I like that. Like I said, when it just stops talking, like go silent, and I'm like, oh, and we're done. So I'm going to edge this. I love that the arrow's pointing up. And it's kind of funny, I gessoed this, so I'm going to write gesso pages. So if I was coming into the studio, I like to work in magazines a lot as a journal. So maybe I would want to take a couple of the pages and put some gesso down just to get it started as a background. Or if I have a junk journal where some of the pages just feel overwhelming, then, you know, that might be something to just go through one of my journals and add some gesso to a couple of pages and get it started. All right, so we've got, oops, still working on getting those edges down. Okay, so we've got gesso pages. This one feels done to me too, so let's see. Since, yeah, I spelled mandala wrong, so that's hilarious to me. So I'm gonna go with forage, since it's an outdoorsy word, outdoorsy looking. And let's see. Yep, I'm gonna put it in the pink. Maybe just pull a little more of the white paper off of it so you can see more of the pink. My hands are getting filthy, so now the words are also getting grungy, but that's okay. This is a deck for me. I do not demand perfection from myself. I demand do something. Hence the reason I'm making a deck. So if you're interested in my class, again, it's called In This Moment. Whoops, got fingerprints right on the word. Yay. It's called In This Moment. Is a handmade deck making class. It is live, but it will be recorded in case you're not able to make it live. It is on September the 17th, and all the information is in the link in my bio, or will be in the description of this video once I put it up. And if you're interested, then please check it out. I'd love to have you in the class. So I've got one more to do, and then we will have 6 done. And that will be a good start, I think, to this deck. Yes, Stephanie, it is separate. It is a separate from my membership. Yes. Good question. That's a standalone class that anybody can join. All right, so I do have orange in the background. So I'm going to play up on that a little bit. And also I've got some blue. Well, that would be awesome. Yes, I would love to have you in the class. All right, blue, and then I didn't put any of that green as well. Okay, so this feels like it definitely needs some black and a stamp. Now I have this that I cut so that you can, I might even be able to use it so that if I stamp with it, I can put like jelly plate or journal, should be able to fit, even play with clay. Purge something. That might be fun to put in that. So usually I would use a heat gun, but I'm just gonna dab it, see if I can dry it up a little bit. Oops, not washi tape. Although that's another option. I want to put this on and see how it lands. And I'll add some doodling to it. I'll make it a little more. That's kind of fun. And then I think I have, okay, something maybe more solid as black too. Got this triangle stamp. The reason I picked it up is because it's solid, and I feel like the background is too muddled, and I need something that's now going to draw focus away. So that brings focus, whoops, I'm off the camera. It brings focus to the black away from the background. The background just becomes a fun background. Okay, so I'm gonna add the word in here. Let's see if purge something. Yep, I think that'll fit. Before I start doodling around it, because that might help. Right now it needs more white, but one of the things putting the word down does is add white automatically. because of the paper. So will it be enough white if I just add some white dots after, after this as one of the final things? Because again, I'm trying to put a little bit of doodling. That's kind of fun. So I'm gonna grab my Sharpie a little bit and emphasize a couple of these lines that I stamped. Especially where it caught the paper. I'm gonna grab my white paint pen and add some dots in my triangles. Here. So they all have that similar feel to them. Oops. And if you feel like you need a couple dots somewhere here and there to break up some black, go for it. And then I'm going to very gently see if I can do this without smearing all my dots. This also makes for very messy hands. Okay. So there you have it. I got a set of 6. So I can purge something, gesso pages, go outside and forage, make stickers, make fodder, make a stamp. And then I still have words that I do have to learn how to spell. So I'll go back in and do some more ideas of what I could do in the studio. And then I still have my base, my collection of base ones that I can just pull 3 out and work on. I do like to work in 3s. 3 is my favorite number. So a lot of stuff I do ends up in 3s. So I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me today. And if you're watching this on the replay, let me know if you have any questions in the comments. That would be awesome. And again, my class is called In This Moment. It is a live handmade deck making class where I guide you into making the deck that you need in this moment. Mine being, a break. Not like I was drawing a blank in my studio, so I wanted to make a deck so I could walk in the studio, pull a card, and do something. So all the information is in my bio, or you can find it when this is posted below. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.